2, and we'll call this meeting of Fergus Falls City Council Committee of the Whole to order. Roll call, please.
Here. Here. Here.
Here.
Yeah. Here.
Here.
Here. We have a quorum. First item of business this morning is a discussion item. We'll get an update from Elizabeth Wafel of the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, all the way from St. Paul. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. It's great to see you all. I think, as I've told you before, Fergus Falls is always one of my favorite cities to visit. So it's really a pleasure to be here. For the audience, my name is Elizabeth Wafel, and I'm an attorney lobbyist with Flaherty & Hood, and I do the environmental, energy, annexation, and land use lobbying for the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. The Coalition is an organization of more than 100 cities across the state working on issues that really hyper-focused on greater Minnesota issues. And so we work on LGA and property taxes, probably our biggest area, economic development, annexation and land use, transportation, environment and energy, and then labor and employment. I'm going to comment on two right now because they're not part of the rest of the presentation. The first is annexation and land use. Like I said, I do the lobbying there, and it's one of those things I think I say at the beginning of the session every year, nothing's going to happen, and then it does because we end up having the townships come in and try to challenge all the laws we have. And so this year during the session, when they tried to do it again, we did stop it, but we did say to them, hey, why don't we sit down and discuss our issues, see if there's areas that we can actually work on and fix. And so we actually met last week, and one of the things that came out of that is that we realized, the CGMC, that we wanted to get a better understanding of where what our cities are experiencing right now with annexation. So we actually sent a survey out 2 days ago, and we'll reprint it in the CGMC and brief on Thursday. So I really want to encourage at least one or two of you to fill that survey out. I was actually astounded. We got like 40 answers within one day, and they've been really helpful to me. So I just want to encourage you to take a look at that. The other thing I want to point out is that labor and employment, that has typically been, and actually it's extremely popular. I swear to God, every time I go to a conference or something, the first question is, where's Brandon Fitzsimmons? They want to ask about labor. We don't tend to do a lot of lobbying on there, but there is some of the PARO Act and things like that we have been getting more active on because it has been impacting our cities a lot. So I think there's some stuff in the report on that, and it is, again, we're looking at for the legislative session, are there steps we need to be taking. But this was a year with a lot of potential. There was a huge historic $9.3 billion budget surplus. It was supposed to be a bonding bill. Federal money coming in from the infrastructure bill, lots of unspent ARPA money, and so there were a lot of resources out there that were to be used, to be deployed across the state, because there's also a lot of need. But there were a lot of challenges. Obviously, even though the pandemic, isn't like it was 2 years ago, there were still a lot of challenges because the session was hybrid. And I'll be honest, it's harder to work with people when you can't be face-to-face with them. Redistricting and elections always make it a challenge at the legislature, and compound that with the ongoing political polarization and the unfinished business that needed to get done, and it was really a challenging session. So, I'll just, skip to the punchline, but then we're going to talk about some of the things that were accomplished. But it really was a session where I think some of the opportunities were squandered at the legislature. Everything was set up to be a really successful legislative session, and they really did come close on a lot of bills. There were a few that got passed. More that, we had that tax bill with the LGA increase just in sight, but they couldn't get it past the finish line. So it was really frustrating, and the negotiations did fall apart, and some big chunks of legislation fell by the wayside. How did I do? I have no idea. I don't know if you can. I'm just going to talk about our top goals. I don't know if there's. Okay, I apologize. Our goals shouldn't surprise you. I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about a couple of them. We really want to increase LGA. Obviously, that is a really important goal for us, as well as improving the formula. Bonding bill, also really important. Biggest thing we push on is the Public Facilities Authority, but we also have been working on child care grants, the always favorite BDPI grants, and housing public infrastructure grants, which is our answer to BDPI, but for housing. Also working on other child care grants, as well as city streets. We are done. Sorry.
There you go.
Oh, okay, well. Nice little picture here, just a reminder. I mean, we really did continue to take advantage of the hybrid formula, testifying in person and hybrid in-person and remote testimony, webinars, and other things like press conferences to make sure our message was getting across. Another thing we did is we spent a lot of time, particularly on water infrastructure, with coalitions. We built together a coalition of, it was unions, contractors, and an environmental group to really push forward on water infrastructure. LGA, though again, probably the reason we really existed in the first place. But this is a top priority for us, and we were the only Greater Minnesota focused group in part of the negotiations on a new formula, working with the League of Minnesota Cities and the Metro Cities. We also had House and nonpartisan staff on there and the Department of Revenue to come up with a new formula. We looked at the existing formula and the existing factors, identified, what's still working, what isn't. And, one of the advantages we have, we're focused, extremely on what happens with Greater Minnesota when we make a change in the formula, what does it do to our members? And we're able to do that because we have the in-house capability. We've got Anya McDonald. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to meet her. She's been at some of our conferences. And then we have Jeff Van Wyken, who's been doing this for about 25 years. And they worked together to come up with a formula that we were pretty proud of. It maintained the basic structure but changed some of the need factors, and it would have been really beneficial to our communities. A lot of the things stayed the same, including the division of cities, calculate how you calculate a city's capacity, but again, those need factors were different. Unfortunately, it failed to get across the finish line. I do think it's important to emphasize that the final House, the House bill did include the formula change and $34 million increase, and that final conference committee did include more money for LGA, but no formula updates. So it's important to remember that we did have bipartisan support to put more money into local government aid. You may remember a few years ago, we pushed it back. We finally got it back up to the 2002 level. Now's our goal is we really need to keep that moving forward. Your city expenses, continue to increase with inflation. We think it's really important that a local government aid, which is a really important component of your budget, as you know, continues to increase as well. And that's, again, going to be our top goal, or one of our top goals for the next session as well. This kind of shows you what would have happened. You guys would have jumped by about, $500,000 if the entire proposal would have gone through. Even with the tax conference committee report, you would have seen more funding in there. But it's really important, again, that we get those changes made. The formula, you can kind of see the formula update would have been very beneficial for Fergus Falls. So again, so that's something that we're going to keep in mind. One of the cities that it does help, and it is also important, again, to get more money in there. So that is really going to be a big priority for us. Wastewater, this is what, like I said, I spent a lot of my time on. We did, one of the things that we realized is that it's important for us because there's so many different audiences you need to talk to when you're getting a bonding bill because you need that supermajority, that we pulled together a group of folks that we don't always work with to try and push things forward, and really worked on an ambitious water package because a lot of our cities are facing a lot of challenges with both wastewater, drinking water, and stormwater. So we were pushing for, $300 million for the Public Facilities Authority, plus ongoing money for the PSIG grant, which is the program that really helps you, meet the pollutant requirements that are placed on you. We also introduced a new program to provide technical assistance grants so you can do a better job of planning for the future. The other thing that we have not worked on in the past but really became a focus this year and will be a focus for the next several years is addressing lead lines. As you may know, the EPA is requiring all cities to map and inventory their lead lines by October 2024, which in my humble opinion is a very ambitious goal. Okay, because you have to figure out where they are and then what you're going to do with them. So there is money coming in from the federal government, but we don't think it's enough to tackle the problem. So that was something, again, that we added to our sort of package of what we were working on, pushing for lead line mapping grants and money for lead removal and replacement. And there was funding for it, for that in one of the Health and Human Services bill that runs through a different thing, but again, didn't get past the finish line. No bonding bill, again, means that infrastructure will have to wait. And it really, really was frustrating. Neither House nor Senate produced a bonding bill. And you guys have been seeing me for a while. I mean, I've been doing this for, nearly 14 years. And that's the first time I've seen it where we haven't seen a bonding bill out of either one. I think if you ask people who've been there for 30, they'd say the same thing. They were negotiating. I mean, we spent a lot of time working with people, in front of the scenes, behind the scenes, but nothing materialized. I have heard, in fact, just yesterday as I was driving up, one of my colleagues called me. There's still discussion about the potential for a special session. I know a lot of our cities have been passing resolutions. I'm pretty sure you guys did too. We're going to continue to push on that, but if we'd like to see that happen. The infrastructure needs out there, the things that our cities need to get done now is extremely important. So we're going to push on it this year, and if that doesn't happen, try to get it done, the next year. Like, unfortunately, that's happened more than we'd care to say in the last 15 years, but I'm going to continue to push on that. I do want to mention, again, we do a lot, the environment area keeps me pretty busy. There's a handout in your packet that talks about some of the different things that we are doing. For example, I'm just in the process of submitting comment letters to the PCA on the increase in water fees they're proposing. We are looking at some work. We actually sent a letter, for example, last week to the MPCA asking them to step in and defend some rules that they promulgated that are challenged in federal court. So there's a lot of different things we're working on. If you ever have any questions about that, do call me. It's something we have been increasingly active on over the last 5 to 7 years, and we have been seeing results there. Childcare, that's my colleague Scott.
Can I interrupt can you tell the council and the audience a little bit of the work that the coalition did in the lawsuit for Osakis?
Oh, yeah.
Versus the MPCA, because I know that the city of Fergus Falls has had some issues with the MPCA on regulations with our landfill, et cetera. So can you just let us know what the work behind the scenes on that is?
Yeah, and I should have actually put that in the slide because it really is kind of a big deal. Osakis, as you know, is kind of located a little bit sort of south and east of here, and they had a situation where their permit would require them to, if it was instituted as proposed, would require them to add a $10 million wastewater facility instead of a pond, which is, in a city that small is a pretty big burden. And so they challenged their permit to the MPCA, sort of basically, the easiest way to explain it is that it wasn't grounded in the science and that they were sort of challenging something that the impairment really wasn't demonstrated under the rules that the MPCA had passed. And so the Osakis decided to challenge that. That is not something that's easy. It is very, very rare because a lot of people don't try it because it's just so extremely rare that you can get any kind of relief. But Osakis brought a contested case, and when that was denied, and a contested case means that they're going to have to go before an ALJ and talk about what's in their permit. That was denied, so they brought it to the Minnesota Court of Appeals. And I'm kind of disappointed I missed that hearing because apparently it was a good hearing, but the CGMC got involved because, again, Osakis is not a huge city, but this was also a case that, the bigger reason we got involved is because this issue will affect a lot of our cities. The rule that we were focusing on, the phosphorus eutrophication rule, is a rule we've had concerns about since it was passed. It's something we've been involved in, and we've always been concerned because we've said that the MPCA was basically, we said the rule was problematic and that as they were sort of implementing it, they were implementing it in a way that didn't really match the rule that they had passed. And so that was the basis for the lawsuit. And what the CGMC did is we stepped in and helped financially support that lawsuit because it is going to have a big impact on a lot of our cities, because a lot of you will be seeing, down the road, you're going to see monitoring and potentially a limit in your permit for phosphorus and eutrophication, and so we helped them step in and made it so that they could challenge this at the Court of Appeals, and the Court of Appeals came back and said, hey, MPCA, you're not enforcing your own rules correctly. This is problematic. Back to the drawing board, and that's a big win. That kind of thing doesn't happen very often. So it's good for Osakis, but we really do think again, we wouldn't have gotten engaged just if it was a one city impact, but we got engaged because it was a multi-city impact. And that is, again, I don't talk about it as much at these presentations, but we do that on other things. For example, a number of our cities have been facing chloride and salty parameters. And right now there is a challenge at the federal level to the salty parameters rule that we worked with the MPCA again almost over a decade to get a better salty parameter rule. That was put in place. Now there's a federal lawsuit from several environmental groups challenging that. So we again sent a letter last week to the MPCA asking them to intervene and defend their own rules, and then we're looking at, is that something we need to do as well? So we do a lot of things that may not be as visible at the legislature, but the environment is a complex area, a lot of administrative work, and so we're stepping forward. But thank you for reminding me, because again, it's not in the presentation, but the Osakis thing is a real big deal. I'm very proud of my colleague Daniel Marks and Robert Scott, who were the lawyers on that, and I'm really proud of the CGMC for agreeing to step forward and help Osakis on that, because it is something, again, the reason the CGMC is successful is because we all work together on something, and it's great when we can do things at an agency level as well. So, thank you. Childcare. This is an issue, when you saw me 13 years ago, I wasn't talking about, but has popped up quite a bit, and we continue to work on it. We did see funding included for some of our initiatives in the House bill, but unfortunately the jobs target did not include that. But either way, they didn't pass a jobs bill. We will be bringing that forward. We really have been focusing on, we've helped to get several child care programs established because some needs of Greater Minnesota are similar to the metro area, others are not. And so we've been really focusing on what do we need in Greater Minnesota to do that. But unfortunately, with no jobs bill or no bonding bill, that did not move forward. Sorry, I don't want to do this the wrong way. Housing continues to be a challenge for so many of our cities. We were really thrilled to see that the Senate housing bill did include $10 million for workforce home ownership programs. I think in Greater Minnesota, workforce housing is this really kind of some of the really big challenges. So we were excited to see, money put forward into that program, but the House never came to an agreement on the housing bill. So that was, that again stopped, as well as no bonding bill for the Greater Minnesota Housing Infrastructure Grant Program. Again, that was something, like I mentioned, we've got that BDPI program, which the CGMC created 20 years ago, and I think almost all of our members have used it, and many repeatedly. And, we usually put money into that with the bonding bill. Well, we thought, we need something similar for housing on that, and so we created this program, and it's in statute. We got it in statute last year, but last year wasn't a bonding bill. We were hoping to get money in that this year, and it didn't happen because we didn't see a bonding bill. But again, we're going to continue to push on that in special, either for a special session or get something done at the beginning of next session. Broadband, one of the few bright spots. I got to have some good news at the legislature, and I'm really happy to see record amounts of money going into the border-to-border broadband program, also trying to leverage the federal funds. The investment that's coming into Minnesota is historic. We continue to make sure, try to push for more funding, as well as, weighing in on things like always trying to improve the criteria so that more of our cities benefit on things like that as well. If anyone has any more questions, I can talk more in depth about that. There were discussions, I don't want to get too buried in the weeds, that we had with Commerce on some of the concerns about what was happening with federal grants coming in. We were, worked with some folks on getting that resolved, but like I said, always call me if you have more questions than that. But kind of getting to the end of session, how did it play out? Going into it, as you know, constitutionally, they have to adjourn by the third Monday after the adjourn by the third Monday in May. And it looked like it was going to happen. They released their spending targets on May 18th. They were really coming together. We also kind of let out a little cheer on Friday when we saw the first bill came out. On Saturday, they came out and announced they had a tax agreement that included an increase to LGA. But Sunday, despite all the work, they couldn't agree on all the omnibus bills, and it ended with not a lot happening. Of course, we stepped forward the next day, calling for a special session. Again, continue to call for that because it's never too late to get your work done. But overall, it was disappointing both because the situation was right, but also, again, so many things were so close. We did get that, like I said, tax agreement with more LGA, other things pushed forward. Was a disappointing end to the session. Looking ahead, this is going to be a big year. I mean, I think you probably know this. I think you're getting a new, your senator will have a different name. It may be a familiar face, but across the state, we're going to be seeing at least 47 new legislators, and that's assuming every single incumbent wins their race, and somebody's going to lose. So we're going to be seeing, a lot of new legislators potentially changing control at either body, as well as competitors' governor's race. 2023 is going to be a budget year. We may have a large surplus if forecast is right, and I'm going to be honest, right now, it is going to be critical to, work with our cities to educate new legislators and returning legislators on issues that affect Greater Minnesota. The biggest change I can remember like this, at least in recent history, if you were around back in 2010 when there was it was a wave election and we had a ton of turnover, and we had to spend a lot of time between that election. I think the mayor smiled. You may remember that. Spreading out across the city, across the state, because we are going to have a lot of new legislators, and they do need to. Some of them have an idea about LGA or wastewater or these things, but a lot of them don't, and they don't understand how it may fit in with cities and whatnot. And so it's going to be really important for us to work with our communities to be meeting with every legislator and educating with them, whether they're coming, they're new, whether there's I think like 7 or 8 who are switching from House to Senate. But it is really going to be one of the biggest pushes sort of pre-session and early session just on education, because we've lost a lot of institutional knowledge at the legislature. So it's going to be really important. We lost, Senator Bach, who was there for ages. He was the bonding chair this year, but tax chair before. Senator Mark Hort, Representative Mark Hort, longtime House tax chair. Senator Inga Bretson, longtime environment chair. So there's a lot of sort of institutional knowledge that is going to be gone. So it's going to be really important that we all work together, sort of once we know who's going to be in those seats, to make sure that they understand where we're coming from. It's never too early to start building relationships, and that's going to be, as important or ever this year. It's going to be a real partnership. You're going to be hearing a lot from us sort of, as we get into the election and move forward. In fact, you may, I think we'll be sending a link to it. I think it's going in the mail Friday. You'll receive a link to it next week. We just finished up our candidate packet. What we do is we actually have a packet that goes out to all of our candidates for legislative office that talks about all of the important issues that face Greater Minnesota, to educate them about what needs to get done on our issues. That'll be going out in the mail. So the work is starting now. Upcoming events, just down the road at Alexandria, our fall conference, that will be very, very focused on what happened to the election, what that means for our members, and what we need to do about our issues. Legislative Action Day is, probably our most widely attended event. That'll be in January. Again, that will be in St. Paul. We do it in St. Paul because it's real important that we try to see our legislators in person, and that continues to open up more and more. And then we are going to Thief River Falls for our summer conference. And I know you may, how many of you have been to Thief River Falls before? You have? Well, that's exciting. So I know you want to go back and you want to tell everybody else in the council about how exciting it's going to be. Our current president, Mayor Homer, we're having it was just, I think they just happened to submit on the year that he was there. It's 2 separate committees that decide that, but we're excited to be going to Thief River Falls, kind of see all the good things they're doing. So mark that one on your calendar. Again, thank you. Fergus Falls, again, one of our longest time members of the coalition, has always been very active, and you really help us get our work done at the Capitol. So thank you for all you do. Just a reminder, we just sent our first notice out, or second notice out, about committees. We can really use some more people on our committees. If you like wastewater or drinking water, give me a shout. I do the environment work. Actually, we do a little bit more on that in environment as well, but I also do annexation and land use, but we have other committees, labor, economic development, property taxes, and we can really use some new blood. So if you have not been on a committee yet, I want to strongly encourage you to give us a call, and we'd love to get you involved. That's really, again, how we get our work done. So thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions? All right. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 2 on the agenda is a surplus equipment discussion. We'll call on Dan Knudsen. in the IT department. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, Mayor and council members. I'm just here this morning to make a request that you take a look at the attached surplus equipment that the IT department has, asking that you declare that as surplus and that we can list that on auction for sale or dispose of appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Does anyone have any questions on that equipment? Or would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make that motion. I've got one sort of question, but more for Bill.
Second motion we bring to the council?
I'll second.
Thanks, Jim. Go ahead, Anthony.
We obviously sell quite a bit of stuff on this .gov site. Can we get a list of like what it sells for?
Sure. So bring back to you what some of the sale prices.
Yeah, I know. More like I know. Guy comes in here frequently and says, "I want to list this." Does it actually sell?
Yep. We should be able to print off out from that. And
In the market for a computer?
No.
have we got a deal for you?
All right. Do we have a motion to bring this to the council?
Obviously, you can go on the consent agenda.
Consent agenda. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to skip item number 3 this morning. Moving along to number 4, we'll call on Sandy Cunningham and Bill Sonmore to discuss the proposed fee schedule. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, thank you.
I'd be honest, I was really hoping Sandy was going to come up there to the podium.
She's
Just
here
kidding,
for
Bill.
backup. When I misspeak, she'll hit me in the back of the head with something here. So, not a whole lot of changes in the fee schedule this year, but we'll just go page by page. So, on page 1, the water reconnection fee, moving from $40 to $50, and then after hours, $75 plus the $40 fee is the current, moving to $100 plus the $50 fee. We have not increased this in quite a while. When you look around at other cities, they're actually at least the same or higher than we are. And this is when, you have a delinquent customer, we shut the water off, we have to go back out, make a special trip to do that. So we're just trying to cover our costs. As you know, our costs go up each year. Going to page 2.
Bill?
You actually make a special trip out to cut them off also.
You are correct on that. It's not just one, it's 2. And
It's 2 trips.
right.
On page 1, I just got a question. Why is there such a big difference between like on sale full liquor license at $2,500 and then kind of the lesser ones being kind of anywhere from obviously $100 to $300?
Lynn?
With the paperwork that goes into the background check, but these prices have been around for at least 15 years.
Yeah.
They haven't changed. We just can't justify asking any more than $2,500, but there's a lot of background checks and whatnot that have to go through on those full liquor licenses.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so page 2, implementing the food truck permit, $100 annual permit there, $50 for a short term. I believe we talked about this when we put that ordinance in place, so this is just getting that on the fee schedule. We're looking at a filing fee for city council and mayor of $5. I understand that's a state statute, so we need to have that in there. Special event street closure fee, this would be a new fee of $250. We wouldn't charge that like for the parades when we close for the homecoming parade or Summerfest, but this would be based on those special requests. And our staff was bringing this forward as, we're pulling them from other areas and going down and signing the streets ahead of time so that you have no parking, so that when we come in and whatnot with those barricades, someone requesting the barricades, there's still a charge for that in addition to this. But Sandy or Lynn, did I miss anything with that? Anything that? Okay.
I would like to kind of discuss that one. I think we're trying to promote like things downtown, and obviously, I know they've done that through the summer to try to get people to go downtown. I think if we implement this, that's going to make that cost prohibitive. So I think we need to kind of discuss that one. And, you know, on top of the 250, then there's probably another 250 in rental fees. So now you've got $500 into that. So if you're going to do that throughout the summer where we're doing this late till 8, you know, that's going to add, it's going to be a burden. And I think we're here, if we're going to do it for Summerfest free, and we're going to do it for parades free, then I think if you know, are we going to charge the marketplace when we take things there? You know, are we going to do intercompany, as it were? So I think that one, I mean, I obviously I'd like to hear from other people, but I think you're just going to make it prohibitive that nobody's going to do it. We might as well, you know, forget doing things downtown then.
And thank you, Anthony.
You know, I
I'd
mean,
like to hear from other-
the chamber does their kind of shop, move, and groove.
Sure.
So,
Lynn, did you have a,
Chairman, we have had a lot of, post-COVID, a lot of events. A lot, probably 30, 35 events, special event permits just since May. Tomorrow, for a good example, we have the Late Till 8, we have Port Street of Make a Splash, and we have an open house for Thrivent that will be closing down 3 different main thoroughfares in town. It's a lot, and so staffing-wise, like Bill had mentioned, that it does take staff away from other events. We're happy to have these events, we're excited to see events coming back, but it's just been a lot of staff time from Public Works. And we are hoping people are using the downtown riverfront structure, which it was made for, was having a lot of community events happening down there. So hopefully we can find ways to continue doing these things that are cost effective, but using our city facilities that we have to.
yeah, thanks. Thank you, Lynn. And I understand there's a cost. I understand what Anthony's saying. I agree with you too. It's going to be cost prohibitive for a group that's trying to do something downtown. So I think we need to figure out a way that it's a reasonable amount of events, because if someone's trying to do something downtown,
yeah,
and there's
we've just spent $5 or $6 million on an infrastructure downtown to bring people downtown, and now we're going to basically turn around and charge people. You know, I mean, you can buy a food truck permit for $100 for the year. You know, maybe then the late till kind of 8 group could probably have something similar. You know, that it was $100 for the season.
And
Yeah.
the food permit, you know, of course, that's doing our check that one time, getting it
Yep.
for them. The reason staff brought this forward was because we are going out, but it is a council decision, and we
Yep.
can certainly talk about it. But
Yep.
we wanted to bring it forward as staff brought it to us, so,
And we were hoping, Your Honor, we were hoping to have this exact discussion because
yep.
right now, there's no mechanism for us to say no to a request of this nature. And the downtown is one thing, but when we start getting, you know, single businesses requesting to close an entire block during business hours, today we don't have a mechanism to say no to that, right? So we wanted to elicit a discussion as to how we want to handle these, because we have seen a great increase in street closure requests, and you know, they can be problematic when you have 3 at a time, and you know, we're having to coordinate with law enforcement and the fire department, because they have to know and educate all their members that tomorrow night between this time and this time, if we do get a call, these are the routes we can't take, right? So it's a complicating issue. I don't know if this is the right approach or not, but we wanted to elicit a discussion, because this could become problematic if we continue to see, you know, 3 streets at a time being closed off and emergency routes being impacted, and we're not covering our costs with the amount of, you know, having to sign things, potentially coordinate towing vehicles out of these areas, and then having to put barricades and come back and get them. So I think we're eliciting the discussion we were hoping for, and wherever we land, I guess staff's probably okay with that, but.
You know, I
Chiming
know
in.
that to also be a part of this discussion, it was at one point, city by statute could waive some fees if it was a community-wide event. That's no longer state statute, is that
Well-
correct?
It is still state statute,
No,
it's
that-
very, very exact language of what is considered
Sure.
a
So-
community festival.
And you as a city council have determined that Summerfest, Shop, Move, and Groove, and the Over the River Festival are our community events, and that's what the state statute is. So you have made that choice as a council, that's why we can do that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to waive fees for those, since those are separate organizations. But we've said that is our community festivals, but not everything can be a community festival. We get questions on other things, and we're like, no, I mean, you're not going to have a community festival every other week, so to speak, but
Sure.
those three are certainly reasonable.
Well, I certainly think that we need to have some discussion on this. Maybe on Monday night, we could bring our thoughts and like come up with a, right? Because I think that I agree, we want to make this as less burdensome as possible for the businesses that are trying to promote community event and community gatherings and such. At the same time, I realize that there's, there are costs to the city. So where's that balance and how do we support that? Thanks, Anthony, for bringing that up.
We don't even have to rush it to Monday. I'll just give you a heads up. There are a couple other fees I need to look at yet and probably come back later this fall. So,
Sure.
I mean, Andrew said it well. We wanted to elicit discussion. We were effective on that.
For next summer's
Your Honor.
session too, yeah.
Can I just
Tom.
throw in a quick parting
Please do.
thought? So really what the question comes down to is do we want to ask, private groups to pay part of what it costs for our staff to set up and take down and do extra planning or do we want to shift that to the taxpayers as a whole, like Lynn said, we have this beautiful new downtown venue that was really made for gatherings of groups. And so I think, as much as we can encourage groups to use that facility, is going to go a long way to alleviate the problem. So I would first say that we, promote that and ask groups to consider using that to minimize staff time and minimize the, changes in planning for our public safety. And, but yeah, I look forward to having a more in-depth discussion.
Thanks, Tom. All right.
Sounds good. So
Sounds
we'll pull that one from right now. We'll come back
Sure.
with further discussion on that.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, and then let's flip forward to page 8. And this is under, I see we have, this is under the fire department, so moving the personnel rate for illegal burning, $20 per hour. That is based on our volunteer fire department, our paid-on-call rate, just keeping up with increased costs there. We go to page 9, GIS services, moving those rates up based on inflationary costs. We have not changed those rates since 2005, so that's quite a while, so seemed reasonable there. Page 12, sponsorships for our youth sports programs going from $275 to $285. Kids Camp on the top of that page going from $175 to $185. Just, again, covering our costs there, slight increases. A note, Kids Camp, I think, what did it fill up in 9 minutes probably this year, is how fast that program went. So very successful program. We just need to be covering our costs. Down on the bottom, just clarifying some language there. Relating to house moves, we had 2 house moves this year, so our police department wanted to make sure we have that in the language. Page 13. The community room over at the police department, implementing a $100 fee, so this is a new fee to use that room. And a note is that our staff over there set up, take down, and clean up that room when groups use it. That's different from the library. We don't charge a fee over at the library, but the library staff does not set up, take down, or clean up the room. The public does that, and of course, the library, that's very much a community gathering place, whereas the police department, maybe not quite as much, but.
Hopefully not.
I shouldn't even go there, should I? Page 14, rental registration going up $5 there on each one of those. And that's kind of been the goal, and also to get people to migrate onto the program and not staying under that old system. Those are the changes. The one, I can't even tell you what pages I would have to flip through, but the community arena fees, when we rent that out like on an hourly rate, I need to come back and look. We haven't changed those in years. We implemented the $175 and the $195 for the summer ice, but I need to go back to those during the year fees, which I know need to go up. We've never increased them, but I haven't had time to look at that, and we'll be looking at that and come back later this fall.
Thank you, Bill. Scott?
A couple of questions. You meant on page 12, under permits and rentals, Will we need to clarify the park food vending permit and how that relates to the food truck permitting? And whether you need to have both permits or one or the other for things specific to
So
that?
is the park food vending, that's the $15?
Yeah.
I believe that would stay. The $100 permit, and Lynn, correct me if I'm wrong, if you know more on this, but that $100 permit is to operate in the city, for us to do all the background work on that. This $15 rate is if you're going to plug in or hook up to city utilities to cover the actual cost of those utilities. Was that?
That's a good Ren question, not a Lynn question.
We'll talk about that Monday. Let us look at that. I don't want to misspeak.
The other thing, is the stage on there, the mobile stage?
It's on here for $500. Yep. For instance, we use that 3 times this summer up for those concerts for the Center for the Arts put on. We're actually compiling all their bills right now for the summer and sending them one bill now at the end of the summer, because the last concert moved into the arena and we need to charge them based on that arena rate. And then plus refuse containers and whatnot. So, yep, we bill that out.
Scott, did you have another question, I believe, right?
Yeah, and this is just, again, just to make it clear for people, on page 1, the dangerous animal registration fee, what animals are considered dangerous, and how do we make it known that people need to register them? 'Cause I don't know that I've ever heard of anybody registering a dangerous animal, so.
Certainly, if there is issues that come out when we learn that they're dangerous, we could have Guy talk about that more too. That would fall under his area. But, we get reports of that. We, as staff, have to deal with it. Then that's the case when they're deemed dangerous. And I don't know the process. And Andrew, I don't know if you do, as far as how we deem one dangerous.
Yeah,
We went through that one time.
we've done several, actually. They don't make it to the council often. If there's an incident where they're biting, or there's a biting incident, there's a hearing before an impartial group that takes place at City Hall to determine whether or not the dog should remain, or be deemed dangerous and remain that way. And then if they are, there's certain rules that come along with that. Or they could even decide that the dog should be dispatched. That happens from time to time as well, and you guys don't even hear about it. But once they're deemed dangerous, they can never lose that classification, even if they move to another city. So it hangs over their head, and
It's helpful to know.
parameters in place for those dogs. And so those people are very well aware if their dog falls into that category.
I think that the way I understood it was that it would just be kind of a classification, that if you had this particular kind of dog, you had to register it. So it's always after the fact, not before?
Yep.
It's after the determination's been made?
Exactly, and it's after a due process appeals, the dog and the owner have due process, and there's an appeals process.
So it's almost like a fine.
Yep. Well, and, we don't necessarily want dangerous dogs in town.
Right.
Because, they're likely repeat offenders, and that's when they do get dispatched. This is saying, if we have to have those extra parameters in place, and our animal control is likely going to be, following up on things, ensuring that fence heights and kennels are adequate to ensure the dangerous dog doesn't reoffend. That's why there's extra cost involved.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Bill. We'll look forward to
bet.
further discussion on some of those items. Next item is the Broadway Avenue resurfacing project. Brian Navarro. Good morning, Brian.
Hey, good morning, Your Honor, and members of the council here. Yes, before you, I'm going to be requesting initiation of Public Improvement 5327. This is the Broadway Avenue resurfacing project from limits of Fir Avenue to Lincoln Avenue. This is part, I have it programmed in for the State Transportation Improvement Program that's federally funded. We can refer to the map I've shown right there. This project basically consists of about approximately 1 mile of a street resurfacing mill and overlay. We'll be doing some patching and also ADA improvements throughout this project. I want to note that it is a federally funded project. The shares that I have programmed, it's 100% funded through the federal and state aid funds. 80% federal for construction only. The remaining 20% construction and engineering, everything is through our municipal state aid. I want to note that District 4 MnDOT has indicated there's approximately $500,000 to $600,000 extra dollars that they could apply possibly to this project. So therefore, I'm looking at another candidate to add, obviously, to maximize the available funds. So to do this work, I solicited Interstate Engineering for professional services proposal for final design. They have submitted amount of $100,000 not to exceed. This will include design. We're also going to be looking at some bike lane facilities and other improvements in the project. We estimate the preliminary construction cost about $1.2 million. However, that will change and we'll refine the estimates as this project continues. So therefore, at this time, I'm requesting to initiate public improvement 5327 and then accept Interstate Engineering's professional services proposal in design for an amount of $100,000.
Thank you, Brian. We can do that, recommend that to the council through a motion.
I'll offer it.
Caroline, Brent, thank you. Any questions on
I
that
have one
project?
question.
Yes.
Is there any water and sewer included in this, or is it just an overlay?
This is just a resurfacing project that we have
Do
programmed.
they grind the old down and replace?
Yes,
Okay.
correct. We will look at some utilities if there's immediate needs and try to get those right away, but based on how we've proceeded with projects like this before, it's just a resurfacing maintenance project.
Thanks, Brian. We have a motion.
I got
With the council. Yeah, go ahead.
so will this, and obviously Union was the same type of funding, so are we, would this take precedence over kind of finishing Union, or will Union come back on the table? I mean, I mean, we've obviously patched Union, which is a lot better for the patching, but
Yes, yes, Councilmember Hicks, the allocation of funds for the Union Avenue project will remain and that was one of the determining factors why we rejected the bids back when we did. So we're looking at, I have more discussions, but we're looking to start bidding that project maybe in early fall here again.
right.
Try to rebid that as well, but no, they're federal funds, but they're encumbered separately for both these projects.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
All right. Justin?
Just got a question, kind of off topic, but similar to this. So when you peel that top layer off, does that get recycled and reused?
The millings, we call it, yes, milled off the surface. Yeah, in some instances, there's two ways you go about it. It's a milled surface, you're taking off 1.5 2 inches, what have you. Some instances on our local projects, we'll deliver it to our public works facility and we use it for resurfacing. However, just like a lot of milled surfaces, the contractor, there's value in that product, for dispensable oil, everything, call it wrap, that they can integrate back into mix designs and everything like that. So, like I said, it doesn't go to waste. Either the contractor reuses it into new material or it gets used as surfacing for some of our projects.
I just had an idea, not that you guys haven't had this before. I don't know if it's considered crushed asphalt, but I know we have some city streets that are gravel in town. And I thought, well, should we be using this product to lay over the gravel to, I don't know. So just thought of it as I was sitting here, so I thought I'd ask. Maybe it's not the same as
Having had the
crushed
opportunity of live on one like that, you end up with mixed kind of product then, and it doesn't seem to work very well. It either has to be
all
black
done.
or, yeah,
Just thought of it.
and you
sorry.
can't grade it.
We've got 9 amateur engineers sitting up here.
Oh, very good.
Let's hear what they have to say.
I just wanted to mention that we just used some of that material on Rollins Road down in behind where we live, and that's gravel. We've also used it down by Burrington's, down in that area. So we do use it.
All right. So we have a motion to bring this project to the council Monday night. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian Navarro again will discuss the airport runway project.
Yes, thank you. Back in April, the City Council awarded the construction services contract to a National Sealant and Concrete, Inc. This is for Public Improvement 9349. That's with the airport runway taxiway and apron crack fill joint repair project. We awarded this project an amount of $320,918. This was contingent on receiving the final state and federal grant agreement. Recently, I received a final grant agreement in the budgetary table provided and everything. I show two values I just want to point out. We have the top value, top row in this table indicates what we projected the project shares prior to submitting for the final grant. Second row in that column is what the finals were determined. So of the total $386,100 estimated project cost, our local share is approximately $30,045. This amount shown, I want to note, that's total construction, staff time, engineering, construction administration, and design. So just want to know sufficient funds are available to proceed with this project. I've included the airport grants. We also have to pass a resolution just like previous projects. So at this time, I'm requesting a resolution accepting the state federal grant agreement for public improvement 9349.
Thank you, Brian. Again, we can do this with.
I'll offer that, Your Honor.
For the council.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Krista.
And I have a question. On this, if we're going to do this, obviously we were looking at doing the fuel system. Does that, if we do the fuel system, does that entail digging up concrete? So that we're not kind of putting sealant down on something and then digging it up later?
For a small portion of the fuel system, the dispensary unit that's located out in the middle is a pretty minor area. So if it is disturbed, obviously, if we can get both these projects to work out at the same time, because I don't know where national sealants, to be honest, the state or the feds, I'm not going to name, been sitting on this it's taken about 5 months to get this grant agreement.
Right.
I have been talking with National Sealant. They will honor their price because we're beyond bid retention time. I highly doubt because of this. I'm not sure if they'll be able to get to this fall, maybe spring.
Right.
We're just going to have to do some coordination when that time comes.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. All in favor of that motion to bring this to the council, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Again, Brian Navarro, Public Improvement 9771, closed landfill.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. If you recall, some time ago, the MPCA is requesting that the city install new monitoring wells referred to as FF22 and 23. These are located due west of our existing landfill. They are on private property. So because of that, we determined that we needed some permanent ingress egress easement to this project. We got professional services, appraisal services for this encumbrance on the property, which happens to be owned by a shoal. We then, once we got the appraisal, we determined it is reasonable what was for compensation. We have met with the property owner by the name of Miss Amy Scholl, and we have agreed that we believe that $3,500 compensation for the permanent ingress egress easement is reasonable compensation. So, if acceptable, we would secure this easement, and then we would proceed. I already have it scheduled to actually install these permanent wells late this fall. So at this time, I'm requesting authorizing staff to execute the permanent ingress egress easement between the city and Amy Scholl. I have attached that for draft for review along with the exhibit showing what we are looking for, and authorization to compensate Amy Scholl for said easement in an amount of $3,500. I just want to note the easement compensation, city staff time, city attorney time, along with these monitoring wells are reimbursed through the city's post-closure assurance fund with the landfill, and sufficient funds are available to proceed with this. So at that time,
I'll offer that, Your Honor.
Thank you. The motion to allow staff to execute that agreement.
I'll second.
A second from Caroline. Jim, Caroline, any questions for Brian? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you, Brian. Next, we'll have a discussion on downtown walking sign demonstration project, and we'll call on our friend Wayne Hurley from West Central Initiative. Good morning, Wayne.
Morning, Mayor, council members. Thanks for chatting with me this morning. I'll keep this as brief as I can. So some of you that have been on the council for a while may recall that a few years ago, pre-COVID, Patrick Hollister and I came here with a similar project. We were applying for a grant, didn't get the grant, unfortunately, so the project didn't happen. But basically the concept is to install these temporary walking direction signs throughout the downtown area, kind of in the core part of the city. Basically, just to kind of let people know that, hey, it's not that far to walk to Lake Alice from downtown, or to go get coffee at this place. I mean, we can't list specific businesses, but just kind of have a few signs around downtown, maybe a dozen or so, that would just indicate to people a direction and how long it takes to walk to a place. So as you can see, this is an example. These are similar to the signs that we would propose. It's a 5-minute bike ride to this place or whatever it is, something like that. So a little bit of background on it. Myself and Mallory Jarvie, my colleague at West Central Initiative, got accepted into the Central Region Walking College, which is hosted by America Walks and AARP. And they're going to be providing us a grant for $550. So there's no cost to this project for the city other than some staff time. We'd coordinate with staff on where specifically to install the signs and that sort of thing. And they'd be temporary, like I said, they're like a corrugated plastic, kind of like the campaign signs, similar material, and they just tie them up with zip ties so they can be removed at any time, if they start to look bad or whatever, or we decide not to do it. My hope is that if this is successful, we can maybe look at another grant to do a permanent installation at some point down the road. So just looking for permission to work with staff to put up some temporary signs like this. We're looking at probably a spring installation, I think, at this point. Probably don't want to get into it yet this fall. I don't think we have time. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Wayne. Anthony, I can see a question. brewing.
Yeah, I was just thinking, what sort of fee we could charge you when for doing this?
I'm already a little bit bummed that Petal Fergus Falls, we're going to have to move from the police department because we've been meeting there. It's like, well, we don't have $100 a month. So we'll find a new spot. But
I think it's a good idea, as you say, encourage people kind of to go downtown and walk and bike. So
that off the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Anthony.
I'll second.
Thanks,
And I won't
Caroline.
propose we charge you.
Scott?
Since you're describing this as a temporary installation, as you're putting together the details for this, I'd like to suggest that you pick a end date and then decide and define how it'll be then taken down.
sure.
Sometimes temporary things go up and they stay there for a long time. And as you said, if they start to look bad or whatever, somebody notices, but nobody does anything about it. So as you put together the details for this, say that as of such and such a time, so-and-so is going to take them down, and then you've got it kind of clear.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Wayne. So we have a motion to recommend this to the council on Monday night. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.
Anthony wants to do a walkabout.
Item number 9 on our agenda this morning is a discussion on proposed highway trail project. And we'll call on our city administrator, Andrew Bremseth.
Thank you, honored members. As we lose one of our amateur engineers, I'll fill in. Mr. Rich Wetzel's with us this morning. I'll let him go through this concept. He's the one who approached the city about the concept of putting in this new highway connection on the east side of Fergus Falls, including a trail and a bridge over the river near the old Ottertail Lake coal plant site. So I'll let him go through his presentation, his idea. I know he's visited with other jurisdictions and has talked to a lot of you and built a lot of support. So we'll hear what he has to say, and then hopefully we can have a discussion as to how we want to look at this going forward, or if there's an appetite to proceed, knowing that this is a very significant project that would be a huge undertaking. So let's see what Rich has to say, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right, good morning, Rich. Welcome. Thanks for being
Mayor,
patient through our meeting.
members. Oh, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it is very
I
fun,
got a
isn't
great
it?
idea for those festival traffic jams.
Oh, nice. All right.
We're through traffic. So you see the two orange dots that Lynn put on that map for us. That would be the area that the road and trail could go through. So we need somebody like Brian to design that for us. So anyway, I am Rich Wenzel, a resident of rural Underwood, who commutes to Fergus Falls daily. I see a great need for the city of Fergus Falls to consider building this highway and trail corridor between State Highway 210 on the bottom dot to County Highway 1 along the city's east side. The recent demolition of the Ottertail Power Plant Let's see. Just below the top dot there, everybody probably remember that, kind of where the yellow line is there. It's that demolition that opens up the possibility of constructing that trail corridor through there. Completion of this project, along with the new world-class farmers market downtown, makes Fergus Falls a very attractive tourism destination in the upper Midwest. So I'm here to encourage the council members to pass a motion to consider the best alignment for this highway trail corridor and to identify sources to fund it. So thank you, Mayor, council members, for your consideration of this project.
Thank you, Rich. Andrew and Brian, I guess, would you kind of give us an overview of what it might entail if, what the options for the city are, what potential funding, just what, maybe where we go from here, Andrew?
Yeah. Again, amateur engineer. So Brian, I'm going to lean on you a little bit here. You know, as you look at this, it's a significant project, right? And the first time I talked to Rich about this, his passion's obvious. I indicated, you know, a prime example of something significant like this that we've done is the Tower Road Bridge connection here that we completed probably 10 years ago or so now, which was about 50 years in the making, because it's a substantial project with a substantial price tag and a lot of coordination between various entities. And unfortunately, funding sources aren't readily available for a project of this magnitude. In fact, we struggle to find funding sources for our many existing needs. So it is an uphill climb, you know, looking at it just in this form here with two maps on the dot, or two dots on the map saying connect them. You know, you'd have to identify easements. You'd have to be able to secure the land. You'd have to figure out cooperation agreements between, you know, Ottertail Power Company and the city, which none of those things are things that can't be overcome, but they are significant. Wetland areas in there, conservation areas, all of those things have to be taken into account. And that would just be to get to a point where we could even do robust enough engineering to understand what the cost may be. So we're going to spend, I would say, significant resources to even put a number to a proposed project before you could even start looking at funding sources. So I don't want to be a negative Nelly or a naysayer or anything like that, because it's a great idea. But I think with the existing needs that we have and the amount of money and time that this would require, I don't know if there's any immediate steps that we should take unless the council has different thoughts. But generally, when we hear of an idea like this, and I'll go back to the Tower Road Bridge, you know, that's really something that if the council thinks there's merit to the idea, it goes potentially on a long-range capital improvement plan. So it's out there, but it's not actively funded or anything like that. And again, that was a nearly 50-year, if not more, project that it took on Tower Road Bridge. And I anticipate this one being obviously more costly and more robust because the area to cover is significantly larger. So if the council wants to proceed, I would say putting it on the capital improvement plan and giving staff some direction as to how they want us to start doing that due diligence would be appropriate. But we're going to spend money now to even have any elementary answers on what this looks like, the best path, if it's feasible, costs, all of those things. So Brian, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you covered it quite well. It'd be pretty much a corridor study. Terminology unknowns, but that'd take some time and some resources, and then figuring out what agencies would potentially be contributing parties to it, so shareholders.
Question, I have just a couple quick questions. To back up, well, first of all, when we did the Hoot Lake Power Plant study on this area of town, did that identify anything like large scale like that, like any corridors? Do you know that? You know what I'm saying? Like just high. I'm talking high level here.
I thought of that study when this came up. I haven't had an opportunity
Sure.
just to kind of review it back. You
Okay.
know, that was
just maybe that's a question.
I don't
It's-
think we had this connection in that study. I don't remember that.
Yeah, or if, I guess my question is if that area is to be developed in some manner, and granted, that's changed now because of the solar project, not changed completely, but it's changed some. Did that require further connections to major thoroughfares in order for that? That's my high-level question. And then the other question is looking at the, thinking back to that Tower Road Bridge which you referenced, which was 50 years in the making. I remember it was like 2005 or 6, I believe, when the federal funding suddenly became available for a project. It kind of maybe even surprised us. You don't get those federal opportunities all that often. My high-level question is, do we have a project similar to that, that is long-term vision, that we don't have do we have another project like that when our turn comes, because there's federal money out there? That's my
I don't
high level.
believe so, Your Honor, and we do on an annual basis submit for federal appropriations for not necessarily street projects, but other projects.
Sure.
I think this year we were looking, or a couple years ago was related to the Kirkbride. This year was the Dairy Trail or something along those lines. I don't recall, but if there's a project like this that's got the preliminary engineering done and is a little bit cooked and is on the back burner, we can submit, from time to time for federal appropriation. If the funding's there, great. If not, like the Tower Road Bridge, you wait till the opportunity arises.
I think you said it well, Andrew. Like, we all agree that this would be conceived as a great project. We'd all like to see it. How does that work? Like, how much time are we going to spend not knowing when this could possibly happen? Is there any way that the staff could bring back very high level, like, we would need to spend X amount of money just to have this even considered as a long-term capital improvement project, so the council has an idea of that? Or does the council have any, listen to you guys, what do you guys have to say?
If I could jump to the front of the queue, I apologize. I got to go and
Yeah.
leave and pull some wire. No, I'll kind of echo what's been said. I think it's a great idea. It would be, convenient for people that live on both sides of town, especially with a bike trail component into it. Obviously, I'm all about the bikes, walking, et cetera. My only reservation would be that it would bypass traffic from going through Fergus Falls, and I'm not so sure how happy our business owners would be about us spending a lot of time and money and resources to facilitate that, even though it is a wonderful idea. And kind of I'll say the same thing that I, tell anyone who comes to me with a good project idea, as I say, the more private support that you can organize, the more people, the more boots you can put on the ground. If you can do as much of that groundwork and planning and research and preparation as possible, so that, we've got something to hand off to city staff to ask them to work with, that greatly increases the chances of a project's success. So I appreciate your interest. We didn't get a chance to touch base, but feel free to call me anytime. And with that, I'll take my leave. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah. Scott?
This, actually, it's not a new idea. And when we had a planning thing done here not too many years ago, there was this map created that had the east reach, the downtown reach, the west reach, if you remember that conversation. And in that map, there was a connecting link that connected to Diversion Road out on the east side of Wright Lake that was penciled in, so to speak. And so this is, in some ways, just another way to look at that potential thing. And then even a 50-year project has to start at some point. And so with your suggestion, Ben, I think that it would be appropriate to at least get this on the capital improvement project list, and then to the degree that there are opportunities to pursue it, grab those opportunities and go forward. So I'd like to make the motion that we do have staff add this to the capital improvement plan or list, and then investigate as opportunities come up, ways to fund it and facilitate it.
Thank you, Scott. Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Justin.
I had a comment too.
Second, then let's get Jim going.
I think it's a great idea, and, if federal money is available somewhere along the line, quite often, if we have something ready, shovel-ready, road-ready, however you want to call it, at that time, that would put us up on the list maybe, because we've got our engineering done and everything, and I think we should have it on the list of improvements.
Thank you, Jim.
I just have, Rich and I had talked, and I think the project and the concept is great. To Andrew's point and Brian's, getting on the CIP makes complete sense, but I think what I heard him say is we'd have to spend some considerable time and money, because when those federal dollars come available, we got to be ready to go. It's going to require probably a lot of time and resources before this is ready to go. So I don't know how that looks, but I think at least getting on the list and on our radar makes sense. And, we can revisit it as it maybe becomes more of a need.
As an amateur engineer, I'll just point out that, I don't know, but I assume there are some planning dollars that go along with some of the federal, they're shovel ready, there's different phases, stages, I would guess, so maybe the staff could just, if we're gonna add this to the CIP, I think it's capital improvement project list, with the understanding that probably not gonna spend significant resources now without a plan of how this might be accomplished. Would that be reasonable? Like, at least staff can bring us back some sort of idea of what, because I agree, to put it on a plan 50 years, you have to start with the first step, right? So, how that looks, what's a reasonable way to get this on the radar, to do what work is possible within realistic budgets that we have? That, I guess, is my comment.
Yeah, I would agree with the CIP. The other question I had was, we're doing our strategic planning for the city, is if it should go in the land use group too, so that there could be something about it in our strategic plan. But just a couple of my thoughts.
Clara's noting that for the next time we meet, she's got something to add, it looks like.
Well, when Scott was talking about the plan, and you mentioned the Marcus River Reach, it does look like there is a roadway similar to what's proposed here that is indicated in that plan. So it's not out of the realm of, something that we have discussed before. So.
Okay, all right. So yes, Brent.
Well, I don't want to be the downer on this, but I'm on the complete opposite end of this. I'm leaning more with what Tom was saying. The business owners, and with the amount of money we spent downtown, rerouting people away from downtown, I don't think is a good idea. And I'd rather see our staff time focusing mainly on the roads that we have in town, on the amount of complaints that we've had on them. Any resources that we have available, I would like to see going into the current roads that we have before we consider adding on more roads that ended up costing us more maintenance.
Thanks, Brent. Rich, did you have a comment on please come up to the...
In regards to taking away from downtown business, I think that this trail all hooked together is going to maybe take more people downtown too. So
I don't see that, so.
Oh yeah, I would use that road a lot myself if I could live another 50 years. But I would go in the one way, maybe go to the Y or whatever, come back through downtown. So I think it's going to take some wear and tear off the downtown streets.
Well, I'd like to see our resources used on roads that we're already having people complain about.
Okay, but if you're looking at federal funds and stuff like that, then you got the possibility of that coming in. The roads downtown are maintenance, right? The other one has the possibility of getting bonds. You get bonds for maintenance? Maybe some, huh? But
Thanks. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Brent. So
I think we want to keep it open.
we have a motion to to direct staff to include this in future capital improvement planning, with the understanding that they would bring back some sort of idea before any funds are spent or any great deal of time. Is that accurate for the council?
So just, Your Honor, just to clarify, so Brian and I are on the same page here. We'll prepare something that lays out kind of steps that we would need to get to a point, and potential costs of securing easements and some of those things. And I'll lean on Brian to at least lay out the process that we would have to go through to get the preliminary engineering.
Give us a better understanding of what time, staff time and resources might be involved, at what level, and what is,
And where to get it to a point where it can just rest on the CIP. for
until
some time.
funds might become available. Is that, yes, Bill?
And you won't see that on the CIP that we're attaching to the budget presentation on Monday.
This is a longer term.
Brian and I have really, kind of between the two of us, updated that plan. I mean, and so
This is a
we're not
much longer
changing that
term.
today.
This is a much longer term
Yeah.
than anything that we're dealing with right now. I think everyone understands that. With that, we have a motion to direct staff to bring us back some more information on that. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
That motion carries. And with that, I believe there are no other items on the agenda. We are adjourned.